Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Event Icons. I'm Brant Kruger. She is Lindsay Martin Bilbrey, and today we are going to be exploring life on the road. We've both just come off extended road trips going back well into May. It's now the beginning of July as we're recording this, so we wanted to just take a moment and take a breath and go through things that we learned, things that we liked, things that we didn't like, and even some of the toys and travel accessories that we picked up along the way. And we're going to do that right after we kick that intro.
It's Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, so you know what that means. It's time for another episode of Hashtag Event Icons.
Presented by Endless Events.
The show where you get to ask the icons of the events industry anything.
Just go to www.event-icons.com to ask questions.
Our iconic guests will answer them live during the entire show. Before we get started, the more people we have watching, the better the conversation. So please help share Hashtag Event Icons
on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Just tell your friends to watch at www.event-icons.com.
Now, without any further delay, this is Hashtag Event Icons.
All right, so we're back and we're going to be talking today about tips and tricks from life on the road. We're both a little slap happy because we've spent the better part of the last month on the road, some of it together even, as we were actually able to be in Frankfurt with IMEX Frankfurt doing the live shows from Event Icons there. So we got to spend some of the time together on the road. Welcome and thanks for joining me today, Lindsay. I think this is going to be a fun one.
I do too. I'm excited. I think that based off some of the conversations we had while we were in Frankfurt, we tend to travel very similarly in some random ways. First of which is we don't do well without coffee. And you'd be surprised to learn how many places coffee is either in short supply or they make you work for it.
You're absolutely right. And so the final week and a half of my voyage over that lasted probably 6-7 weeks, the final week and a half that I had was actually in Las Vegas at a fairly prominent resort. It's one of the higher end resorts. And one of the things that drives me nuts about Vegas is the fact that so many of, especially the high end resorts, don't have coffee makers in the rooms. And, I need, and I mean need, that cup of coffee in the morning. I mean, even in the hotel in Frankfurt, they at least gave you like the instant and the kettles. And I actually really like those. I love those European kettles because it's that 220 voltage, just makes that water go from zero to boiling in about 15 seconds.
To 900 Kelvin.
Yeah, love it. Love it. So you're just like... and it's boiling and you just pour it in. It's like you do the instant coffee and it's just right there and it's ready to go in actually less time than a lot of the like Keurigs as they have to heat up their elements and all that kind of stuff. So you're making me come out with my big gun right away by bringing coffee up right away. Did you just want me to get it out of the way? Was that the whole
see, the thing about it is we've been talking about it for literally weeks, and
it's true.
Everybody else has seen it. It sounds so dirty, guys. It's not, but he keeps telling, and then he goes, and it fits in my Pelican case.
Right.
And right then and there, y'all, I had a lot of jealousy. I wanted one, and it's something that every travel girl needs. Is what I'm saying.
So I stacked up all of my other stuff on top of the Pelican, so I need just a moment. So you have to vamp for just a moment while I rearrange all of my travel accessories.
All right, I like it. So one of the reasons we started thinking a lot about this is we were actually talking about what snacks are best in the travel lounges. And I was actually having a conversation with somebody else about this recently, and we were talking about because he flies Delta all the time and I fly American, and he was like, oh, look at that, they have Rice Krispie treats. And it was right before Memorial Day, and I was like, are they multicolored Rice Krispie treats? And it's like, that's the sign that you've been on the road too much, when you're like, ooh, is it that but not this? What do we really want about that? And then those people who only get to travel once or twice a year, are we really those entitled people? And I say, yes, we probably are.
There's definitely something to that opening segment in Up in the Air where he talks about kind of the travel lifestyle, and you do kind
Yeah.
of get into a groove where you just, this is your life, and your life is this, and then you go to that, and then you've got to have the right luggage, and you've got to have all of that kind of stuff. So speaking of luggage, I'm going to show you the Pelican 1510, which is the standard carry-on sized Pelican. So this is what that's the standard as usual, as most good techies. I've got it decked out with stickers.
And for our
And so-
audience at home, please note that this is way more organized than Will Kearns will ever be. And we are always, when we travel together, hoping, everyone's praying that we haven't lost Will's
Right.
Pelican case, even though it's
So-
15 times larger.
Once we look in here, though, there
And it's orange. Oh,
it is
Brad.
a perfect fit for the Pelican 1510. And this is the Chilux, not Deluxe. It's Chilux Keurig knockoff coffee maker here. So you've got the you pop the top, you pop in the little Keurig thing, drop in the water. It's basically the equivalent of the hotel Keurigs that you see, where it's a single serve thing. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was $20 on Amazon, and worth every penny of that
Which-
$20.
I think that's actually also a valid point, because if you think about how much it costs for a Starbucks coffee or for whatever passes for the hotel coffee, you are paying minimum $3 to $7 for like
Exactly.
black Americano. So I started traveling this year, March 1st, and then I came home right before the meeting show. So mid-June, June 24th. So almost a solid 3.5 months, 4 months. And my last bit of it was all European. And I just was like, I don't like Folgers, but at this point, I just want a Folgers cup of coffee. I can't drink any more of your Americanos, delicious as they might be, because my American self just needs the coffee. So let's start here and kind of maybe get a little focused. So think about like your top 3 to 5 things that you have to have when you're traveling, Brant. Like, what are the things that if you don't have it in your bag or have it in your mindset, you aren't able to like live right on the road?
Well, coffee is number one, right? So literally in stock in my suitcase, every suitcase that I own, I've got 5 or 6 of those instant packets, right? So the worst case scenario is that I have to turn on the hot water really, really hot, or as hot as it will go, and then I can at least have a lukewarm cup of coffee. So like literally that's kind of the number one thing that I have to have when I travel. Right. For those that have known me for a while, have read maybe some of my blog articles or heard me talk about it on this show, one of my main things over the course of the last several years is trying to make my road life and my home life as similar as possible. So really trying to hone in on, okay, what are the things that I can transfer between these two things to make them as much the same as possible, so that we're not in this, weird zone of like feeling like we're on vacation or anything like that. So trying to eat as similarly as possible, trying to drink as similarly as possible. Okay, we want to go out and have a couple drinks because we're with coworkers or clients or whatever, but as much as possible, trying to zoom that in. So that's a long way of saying when I start looking at the things that I need when I travel, it's a lot of the same stuff that I have at home. So making sure that I've got all the same soaps, right? The same lotion that I use to shave my head, the same aftershave, all of that little stuff that makes home, rather than just using the little bottles that they have. And I know a lot of people that do that. They're like, well, why would I want to bring it? They always have conditioner. First of all, that's changing, right? We're already seeing some laws being put into place to ban these tiny little travel size things from hotels because of all the waste that's involved. So first of all, that's changing. Second of all, maybe I don't want to smell like lavender, flower petal, honey infused. Some of those hotel soaps and things are really kind of weird. They've got a lot of like weird things jammed in there because if you put a lot of organic ingredients on the top, it sounds expensive. That kind of thing. So that's when we talk about the things that I need the most, that's a big part of it. I have lots of little gadgets that I've literally carried with me for years, so I don't know if that kind of counts or not, but always good to have extra power. So this is my little 4 outlet power strip. It's made by Monster. It gives you, about a 12-inch cable reach, which is usually enough to just plug in a laptop and a phone and a couple of other things. Also, that's great for European travel because then you only need one adapter. So if you do need to run things off of standard power, you can just plug the one, or most electronics these days will auto switch between 110 and 220.
Right.
But you could just use the one power.
Unless, ladies, it's for your hair dryer or for your straightener. For that one, just go ahead and like think about how long you're going to be there, because I fried more than one like straightener or curling iron before I was like, screw it, I'm just going to buy one. So I have one for Europe and I have one for England and everything else. And we just like throw them all in when I know I'm going to be encountering them. So no.
At some point you buy the coffee maker, right? At some point you buy the curling iron. For you it's curling iron, for me it's coffee. At some point it makes sense, right? It just makes sense. And I'm always down with that. If that's something that makes sense to buy. And another good thing is just a nice compact Bluetooth speaker. This is another one that I'm a big fan of. It's the Oonce Angle. And I forget the maker, the original brand. But I think it's just the Oonce, apparently. OONTZ. But it's got a little bit of bass to it without being too big and clunky. And the battery life is really good. So it's nice for podcasts and stuff like that around the hotel room. So those are kind of my biggest things. Otherwise it's dumb little stuff. It's like, make sure I've got an HDMI cable so I can patch into the TV and watch watch movies on the big screen as opposed to on my little laptop screen. A lot of little things like that. And internet cable, I think, is a highly underrated thing to jam in your bag. Just making sure you've got an internet cable. So I'm kind of looking through my kit here, and I've got this nice one that's like an extendo internet cable, so you can, it's nice and compact in the bag, but then when you need one, you've got it. The Wi-Fi at the hotel in Vegas was not great, but I found the actual plug-in cable. Not only was there not a walled garden that wanted to charge me, it was wide open internet connection, and it was 90 megabits up and down. It was like a raw tap to the internet. I was downloading something and it like took a second. I was like, oh, it must have errored out. No, it's just 90 meg up and down. So
you found the pipe and you were just drinking the keg of
right.
glory.
Right. Exactly. It's the secret tap into the internet core in a hotel in Vegas. All right. So that was me babbling on for a while. Lindsay, start hitting us with your top 5 or so things.
So, I mean, you've covered a lot of what I like from a technology perspective. I'm a Mac girl, so I have to have all of my dongles. I have one, it's actually currently holding in for my microphone, but it has it where it can flip in all my HDMI, and I carry 2 or 3 of them because I always end up inevitably misplacing one. And then when you get on show site, somebody needs one, right? And so I have this whole bag, and it's like literally every dongle applicable for a Mac from the last 10 years, because Apple is going through this thing where they're like, we aren't going to use USB anymore, except everyone else still does. Right. So there's that one. I have to have global entry. And then I had gone ahead just because of some of the international travel I'm doing, so that there's not pre-check or global entry over in most European airports. That's a little bit different, but like Abu Dhabi and Dubai, Hong Kong, they have an extension of the Trusted Traveler Network. Canada does too. We do a lot of travel back and forth with theirs. So it's just those little things that you can do, because it's bad enough to stand in the customs line. Anything you can do to kind of speed that up and make sure that as you're getting through and processed, you have that one. Snacks. Every event planner and event prof knows that the food at all of the things, if you are actually running the event, Lord save you, you won't get to eat. And you're always hungry, even if the venue is helping, send you food on the fly. And it's always too late for room service, right? And this was something at 2 or 3 of the hotels I was at over the last 3 months. Room service stopped at 9, or there wasn't even room service just because of where we ended up getting placed from a staff perspective. And so I'm always starving, and I go to like the after parties and the parties, and it's like copious amounts of alcohol and no food. And so you're like, I will only drink many copious amounts of alcohol in those social situations. So you're not that person. And now I just want some fried chicken. And I think like, it was funny. I was in India coming home, or not coming home, but like from Mumbai to Dubai. And I found a KFC in their food court. And I was like, yes, I'm going to eat you, KFC. You're delicious. And I had it for brunch, y'all. And it was amazing. And it just like, there wasn't mashed potatoes, but gosh, it was close. But, from Frankfurt, where there actually was a Chipotle and a KFC, but it closed at 8:00 at night.
I remember that from Frankfurt. Like I'd get up in the morning and see the Slack messages from like midnight, 1:00. Hey, you guys up? Let's get some food.
I know. I'm always
like,
hungry.
No,
like
no, I'm not.
Ongoing. No, because like you go to the thing. So food. That's a long way of saying that I carry snacks in my bag because I don't necessarily eat giant meals, but granola bars, anything you can do that's easily passed through customs, that's more than like the peanuts you get on the airplane. Because even if you're in business class, it's just not enough food to keep you going from as hot as I burn. So food, do that. I like to bring my Starbucks cup because even though, coffee is a main priority, but it's just nice to have yours and to know that it's yours. And then you're being sustainable, right? Fiona loves us for saying this because you don't necessarily want to use the glassware sometimes inside the hotel rooms because it looks questionable, even in those nice, classy hotels. So I always bring that along with me, and I have to have that. And
it's
then
a great
the final
point, and something that I forgot in my coffee binging is that I wound up going to like a Walgreens and bought, styrofoam cups because they wouldn't give them to me at the coffee shop downstairs. And I was like, the ones that they had were like a mug, like a Las Vegas mug. So that's a huge point. I think that's a great tip is if you've got a travel coffee mug, it's a good one to throw in if it's possible.
Yeah. And then like making sure you've got a good travel bag because, I really wasn't lying when I was like, I love your Pelican because, I have it's a European size carry-on blue Delsey bag and it is bright royal blue. And I've only met one other person in 3 years who's had something that color. And it's important because on some of the airplanes, even if they have to gate check it, you know what is yours, and to have it be well marked. I have business cards and like reflective tape and things on my bag, luggage tag wise, so that my stuff remains my stuff. But inside my large carry-on bag, I also have an extra set of clothes that are business professional. I get a lot of flack from a lot of my friends because I travel in a blazer, a nice shirt, pants that I could roll into a dinner party in, and high heels. And I just, I go back and forth with what's on my feet because everyone's been there at least one time in their life when the bag didn't show up and you are due to go on stage, to go meet with the client, to go to the breakout session. Like there's a whole host of things. And so from a travel preparedness perspective, I'd rather have more crap in my carry-on and know for sure that I can show up and not feel underdressed than not have it at all. So.
At some point, you'll have to remind me to show you the pictures of when my bag apparently got forklifted, if we can verb that, because it's got like punctures that go all the way through from like one side to the other.
Oh my gosh.
Frame was just like a twisted mass. It was one of those things that it got lost, and they sent it to the hotel, and it arrived when I wasn't there. So like it just like I came to my room and here was this like daintily placed in the middle of my room, destroyed bag as if it had been run over a couple of times by a forklift and then punctured by a forklift. So I'll have to show those to you at some point. Maybe we'll drop them into the show notes for everyone to see because it really was quite impressively destroyed luggage.
No, but I think you bring up a valid point there. And like, take pictures. Like, all of us have these crazy, insane stories. And if you follow me on Instagram, it's Lindsay the CMP, and then I think Brent has one too. Endless Events. There's some. It's Will Curran. There's always great photos off of Will's from his travel adventures, especially his stories when like he never shows up on time because of plane problems. But you can see the food. Like, take pictures of things. It's a great way to remember where you've been, because we do go to a lot of really fascinating, amazing places. Like, one of the things that I regretted the most about some of my travel over the last 6 weeks is I was literally in so many hotels and destinations, even though I was doing these phenomenal site visits and meeting with incredible salespeople, taking place with some amazing tourist events. Someone goes, well, have you been to this place before? And I was like, well, technically, but I've been to the Marriott.
Right.
And, like there are several cities that I think several of us have visited multiple times, and we don't take time to decompress and maybe be slightly touristy about that. And I think it's a missed opportunity, because part of our job as event professionals is to talk to the attendees and like help them understand what's really cool about it. Should go to the Bean when you're in Chicago. What does the Albertina look like in Vienna? Could you go to the very top and see the Big Buddha in Victoria's Peak in Hong Kong? Like those different pieces and elements. It's not just, is there a built-in LED wall in the Hong Kong Marriott? There is, though, and it's awesome. You should see it. But also, where is the best dim sum in town? At the Four Seasons. So it's like little pieces like that. How do you help communicate it and also look back at it and not feel like maybe you just went and visited the Marriott, though the Marriott was fantastic?
You brought up about 8 different things that I want to key off of, but I'll go off that last one first. And that is, it's fun when you do get road warriors talking to each other, because you do get those little tips and tricks. And I had a guy that he traveled the world working on cell phone tower equipment. So it's very specific niche, but it's definitely something that's all over the world, right? So I wonder how he's doing with the new 5G rollout. But anyway. And so he was a Chicago guy, so he had the thick Chicago accent, and he told me that the best sushi in the world that he had was in the Minneapolis airport.
Huh.
And so when he found out that I was from Minneapolis, he's like, "You have to just go to the airport just for the sushi." Because I'm usually coming or going. It's like I haven't had an opportunity to really test him on that, but that's what I was told, is that the best sushi in the world is at the Minneapolis airport.
So when we all come into town for ILEA in like
Yes.
a few weeks. Dang.
You're gonna have to do that. Yeah, just come in a little early, or head out to the airport a little early so that you can have sushi, and see if that theory is actually correct. The other thing, if you actually you reminded me of something, and then Francis was talking about power banks, and I think that's another huge one that you got to have. I've got one that I want to grab and find out the model number, because it's got some special powers in addition to just power. So go ahead and vamp for another second while I dig back into my bag.
See what he does, guys? He makes me vamp. All right, so I have to tell you a little bit about my Hong Kong trip, because I went, and it was we were going for an incentive event that we were trying to source. We were looking at several different destinations, and the pictures on that one, from a complete confession perspective, I love food, but I'm not a foodie per se. But I think Hong Kong turned me into it, because I ate more in the Hong Kong visit. Like I ate an entire Peking duck. It is featured on my Instagram, and I swear to God, y'all, it just like they took it, and we'd had all of this dim sum leading up to it, which was phenomenal in and of itself, as one would expect from a 3-star Michelin restaurant. But then they literally brought out this entire Peking duck, which was just dripping in duck goodness. And then they took it apart in front of us, and then they put it on pancakes, and then they went back in and they chopped up the leftover meat and they put it on lettuce wraps. And we had a kitchen tour with the chef scheduled, and like we were in such a food coma. The client was like, I want to go back there and meet him to tell him what an amazing job he did, but I literally cannot stand right now. And I mean, she hadn't been drinking. There was nothing but food coma from this amazing Peking duck. And so like that was a great example of why it's important to just sit and like allow yourself this 4-hour extravagant, because we are always so busy, right? We're not going to do 4 hours to eat. Take the 4 hours, eat the duck.
That's a quote right there. I mean,
Right.
that's just take the 4 hours, eat the duck. And
like
I've been in that position, oddly, and it took a couple hours. I don't know it was 4 hours, but it was definitely a couple hours.
It was a big duck.
Yeah, this was in Scotland, actually, in Glasgow at the Ubiquitous Chip. I still remember the name of the place. That's how good that duck was. In Scotland. So, all right. So the thing that I went to get was the power bank. And so this is a fairly ordinary looking power bank. It's got a button that lights up, hey, that's how much juice it's got left. That's great. It is the RAV Power RPWD-03. Very exciting name there.
Like the Toyota RAV?
Right. RAV Power. Yeah, like RAV. It does have, but it's like I said, it's got some unique features, and that it is also a portable hotspot, but not one that's connected to anything. Now, why would that be useful? Exactly. You'd be surprised. So what it lets you do is it has a USB port in it, and it has a standard Ethernet jack on it. So if you have a hard line, you can plug it into a hard line, and it becomes a hotspot on the hard line that you can then connect multiple devices to. If you have an iPad that isn't very easy to get files on and off of, say you've got a PowerPoint on a USB or something along those lines.
Guys, do you hear him?
Right,
this is not bitter AV guy talking.
You can plug that USB stick onto there, and it becomes a file server that you can then hit without any other Wi-Fi network. So you're able to connect to this as a Wi-Fi network, open up the little RAV Power app that comes with it, and then you're able to access those files and browse that USB stick just as if it was an ordinary USB stick, which to this day iOS still doesn't do. I've heard maybe some rumors in the new version of the beta that's still being worked on that you might have greater file access where you can actually do that kind of thing. So that's a really unique thing. It's also got a compact flash reader. So if you got something, a camera card or something like that, you could drop that right in there and be able to access those files. Now, am I going to use those functions very often? No, but it's still a battery pack, right? So it's just an ordinary battery pack that I can keep in my bag. It's not any bigger or smaller than most of the ones that are out there. And then it's got all of these other capabilities if necessary. So I thought that was an interesting addition to the Power Brick usage and abilities.
So that actually brings up a really good point that just sprung into my head. What do you do for cell phone access? And I don't know, I mean, because a lot of your travel is domestic, right?
Yeah, most of it, yeah.
So, this is something that when we went to Frankfurt, did you use the normal plan? I'm not sure if you're AT&T or Verizon. Did you get a new SIM card? What's your normal habit there? Because it can get pretty pricey. And as people on their own, sometimes the company pays for it, but even companies don't like it when you bring home a $1,200 cell phone bill.
So I do. I have T-Mobile as my provider, and T-Mobile has a deal with most of the major carriers in most of the European countries and a lot of other popular destinations around the world, where it automatically connects, it automatically works, and they have reasonably priced phone calls if you wanted to do a phone call, which nobody ever does anymore. Like 10 cents a minute or something along those lines. And then the data speeds are throttled down to 2G. That's usually enough to check the web for something simple, check a Google Maps or something along those lines. So 90% of the time I just stick with that. And then if I need to do something a little more intensive, I wait till I get on a hotspot, or a Wi-Fi access point. So for me, that's actually perfect. And that's included. That's free. There's no additional charge.
Oh, wow.
It's just part of the T-Mobile service. And actually, if I need more than that, you can actually pay a flat day rate for to get the full 4G speeds, LTE speeds. I feel like there's a weird limit to that. Like, we'll only let you do that 4 days in a row or something, like some stupidly made up thing. That's probably a carrier agreement or something along those lines. I've never had to do it. I came really close in Frankfurt a couple of times when I just went to open up a map and it wasn't loading fast enough. And I was like, okay, well, I'll survive. I know where the hotel is.
Yeah. I mean, I use AT&T, and we use the $10 global a day. And it's like, you could pay $10 a day for the life of it. But in certain places, like when we were in Dubai, or when I was in Dubai, most of the Middle East and Africa isn't covered. And so, we had to use the full passport plan. And even then, because of the way the regulations work there, they can just shut you out. And what I found interesting when we were processing through customs or passport control, they actually, part of Dubai's handoff is they stamp your passport, and then they hand you a SIM card that you can put into your phone, or go and buy one that will give you up to a day's worth of access, which is interesting. And I'm like, I have never had passport. I mean, like, there's always the guys, like when you walk outside of passport control, they're like, hey, I got you a thing, right? But never actually the customs officer handing it off. So I thought that was fascinating. And Will
Yeah.
and I
I trust
talking,
that about as far as I can throw it.
right? I was like, secret police, hello.
Yeah.
But you know, they're all watching you anyway, so you might as well get over that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Will uses, I think, Google Fi, which I don't know that much about. So if anybody's watching live or going to be checking in later, if you've had a great experience with that or another one that somebody should be using, because we're all over the place and we would love to hear your feedback on what's the best SIM card or travel plan, please do write in, because that one is always changing and I think always top of mind for a lot of us, because these days you can't go anywhere without your phone, right?
Yeah, I feel like Fi, because Fi straddles both the T-Mobile and Sprint networks. So I feel like Fi also has that connection where you can get the lower graded data. I think Will just went ahead and bought a SIM card anyway. Either that or he got an extra SIM card from Fi somehow.
I think he's in Ireland enough at this point. He just probably has a cell phone.
Yes. So, So one of the other things that you brought up earlier that I thought was worth just tracking back on is Global Entry. And so for anybody that didn't know what that was, just to track back and make sure. So that's a service through U.S. Customs Border Patrol, but also is connected to several other customs agencies around the world. What it does is, originally that was the only way you could get TSA PreCheck other than through your airline. So you if you wanted to pay to have TSA PreCheck all the time, you had to do Global Entry. And I want to say it's $100 every 5 years.
It is. It's still $100. And it's a very simple process. You go online, you fill out a form, you go and you do like literally a 2-minute interview at an international airport. I did mine coming back one time on a trip and had it and was approved in less than 2 days. So it's something that anybody who travels, especially if you do Canada and Mexico, even like it sounds silly, but it's just, I mean, it takes it and it trims it to nothing.
And I've absolutely had it save my bacon on multiple occasions. So it's nice coming back into the U.S. It enables you to do fast lane customs. You basically say, no, I don't have any chickens, and put your palm print on there, and you're off. And you hand the little ticket that says, no, I don't have any chickens in my bag to the guy, and he nods and away you go. But I've been in a situation where like we were running way behind and I had a connecting flight out of JFK and coming from an international flight, and the line for customs was out the door and down the hall. And I like leaned and saw like the nobody at the Global Entry and was like, and ran, got, and it was like in and out in like 2 minutes. And was able to run and make my flight. So it's definitely worth, if you are an international traveler, even if, because I think you can go through Global Entry no matter where you're coming back from.
Right.
And then
as long as you're coming back from U.S. port.
Yeah. And in a lot of the Canadian airports will actually have U.S. Customs built in a secure area there. So you're actually able to take care of it while you're still at your departure location and handle it there. So it's definitely, I've found it to be well worth that $100 every 5 years. It is funny though, I was really early on and I did not get a 2-minute interview. I got the 20-minute interview explaining the ins and outs of bringing fruit on a plane, and the guy was really serious about it. And like,
I think you just look more suspicious than I do. I've had mine for years.
I am pretty shady. That was even before I shaved and started looking like a supervillain. So that was the case. So I just wanted to make sure that we went back in that one and didn't leave that out, because that is a huge tip that has definitely saved my bacon, along with PreCheck. And Clear. Yeah. You got to throw that one in there now too. It actually bothers me that they keep seems like every 5 years they come out with something else I have to pay for in order to have the shortest lines and all that. But I've already got that, and I've already got that. Why do I have to pay another $100 a year? I've turned into Jerry Seinfeld there.
So I want to come back to something you mentioned. Maybe it was before we started recording or something, but lounges. So this is whether you travel frequently or not. And, if you do travel frequently and your status is such that you're almost at lounge level and they offer to say, do you want to pay this incremental amount to become a lounge member? Give them your money. If only because I think, all of us have suffered delays and cancellations. I remember when we were trying to get to Frankfurt, there were so many storms and lightning and just nasty weather here in Dallas that my flight that was supposed to leave at 11 a.m. that Saturday did not end up getting me there until Monday morning, a day and a half later, for what should have been a 7-hour trip. And so I spent most of that in the American Admiral's Lounge working and talking to you guys and trying to talk to all of the people who were helping me make sure that my travel was working, because I was cheating on my airline by flying Delta. And, that was one of those pieces that there are so many times, especially in a security conscious society that we are now, you don't necessarily want to flip on to the free Wi-Fi at the airport because it's kind of suspect and you don't know what's in there. And even if you have the best VPN known to mankind, nobody needs to be opening up their database or email with that kind of malware out there, right? And so from a lounge access perspective, it really is a pretty valuable tool in your Road Warrior toolkit, because you have a comfortable chair. You have food that you've already paid for and will probably pay for itself by February because, the Rice Krispies are there. You should eat them. Free coffee and Wi-Fi that's protected and slightly more safer than what you'd encounter. And I think based off of what I hear from all my other travel buddies in different airline worlds, everybody's lounges are pretty similar. It's nicer if you're flying first class, but who among us is that person? And if so, can I come work for you? That's just one of those pieces where it feels like a lot of money sometimes, but if you look at all the money you spend on airport coffee, airport food, listening to the crying baby next to you while you're on a conference call, just do it. I have never looked back once we made the investment. I don't know. What do you think, Brant? And you found an inclusive lounge too, right?
I'm in Team Lounge. I never thought I would be that person, and it's because it's not about that. It's not about the lounge excess. It's actually, like you said, for me it's a cost saving. So it's basically, I do the Delta Reserve card, credit card, which then gets you lounge access, but has I think $450 membership fee, which coincidentally is the annual fee for the Delta Lounge. Now, again, if that sounds like a lot, if you are in an airport more than 15 times a year, that's what your $29 access fee to get into your average lounge is. I think the Delta lounges are $29. It might be higher than that. I don't know. But I feel like it was in that neighborhood last I looked. So the first thing that I did was the math of, okay, that's, more than 15 times a year. Yes, I definitely am. That's actually only 7 trips counting, to and from. So, I definitely like getting there a couple, maybe an hour plus early. I know you run things a little bit later, but I like that. Get there early so you're not running.
It depends.
It depends. So that I can have my cup of coffee in the morning and all that kind of stuff and be settled and not be running. And then the other thing is just I actually literally added up the amount of money that I spent in airports on food and beverage over the course of a year. And it was well over $450. So for me, it absolutely was about, so I can pay less than what I was paying to eat in crowded, overpriced restaurants. I can pay less than what I would be paying to do it on an individual day-by-day basis. Okay, great. Let's consider it an annual cost that gets spread out over the course of time, and it's so much nicer. It really is.
Even if you're client side, right? We look at it from the outside just because we run our own businesses and thinking about that. But if you're working, I remember when I was traveling for associations, when I was a corporate business traveler, and I think you again brought up a good point with the credit card too. Sometimes the corporate credit card you travel on doesn't necessarily get you the extra bang for your buck. It doesn't always get you the lounge access. It doesn't necessarily get you extra miles in order to get you to your elite status quotas better or to get you to those upgrades. But all of that saves you and your organization money in the long term. And it's really not that big of an investment. And I think that's probably the final piece around thinking about lounge access, but picking some group, some airline, some partner and sticking with them, being loyal is some of the best advice that a road warrior can have. Like if you kind of like Marriott over Hilton, go give all your money to Marriott. They own everybody at this point anyways. It's going to be worth it, and just be part of Bonvoy. If your hub is an American hub, be an American flyer and be them as much as you frequently can, and fly inside the One World Alliance, and then figure out the wizardry off thepointsguy.com so that you can take the miles you cheated on through Emirates because there are no American flights out in Dubai to come back and give you credit on the One World. But like, find your partner traveler and stay with it. Don't stray, because you will then end up just making little investments and never getting some of the benefits as a road warrior that are due to you, like vacation miles, so that when you take time off of this job that you travel for all the time, you and your family can go and enjoy Disney World like Brant did recently.
Yeah, except for I bought those tickets so I could get the miles.
Lame.
Lame. I think it's a fantastic point, and I'm absolutely in that camp. I've been asked, by clients, hey, can you use budget carrier X? And by the time we added in making sure that I had a seat reservation, because that's $10, and making sure, and the luggage fee, and that's another $75, and it was like within 50 or $100 of what my carrier would have been. And I literally said, had I known that was going to be the case, I would have kicked in the extra $100, to just to make sure that it went in, went into my mile bank and all that kind of stuff. So it's those budget carriers, they get you going and coming. And so you have to just take that into account, and then take into account that your vendors, are going to charge you if they have to use your carrier and have to have a luggage fee or something along those lines. That's going to go into your travel expenses. So my, ability to get 2 bags in for free and then eat at the lounge is actually going to save my clients a lot of money over the long run, depending on whether or not we're doing, actual expenses versus, a per diem or something along those lines.
What's one thing we haven't talked about is trains. And I think that that's actually a mode as a travel warrior that most people don't necessarily take advantage of. Now, if you're doing long haul, obviously you can't take the train from New York City on over to Frankfurt. But, once you're in the European Union, once you're in certain parts of Canada, there's really some lovely options. I was trying to get to Montreal or Quebec City, and the flights into there I was coming from California from a different event, was going to be like 6 times the cost as if I flew into Montreal and then took a 3-hour train ride into Quebec City. And frankly, Brant, it was really actually incredibly relaxing. The Wi-Fi was amazing. The train was clean. There was food, not to mention there was this beautiful river that traveled with me. And so the views were phenomenal. And I've had the same experience, especially if you're on the East Coast. Everybody's taken the train or the Bolt bus once or time from DC to New York up to Boston, but like taking it into Philadelphia, that's one of my favorite ways to come into the city, because when the Amtrak comes through and you see all the graffiti, you really get a sense of what the city's like and just the culture and the essence. And that's a lot of fun in a way that we don't always get to experience it, especially once you get to the Philadelphia Marriott and Convention Center and you never leave again.
Yes, I've seen all the finest sports bars around the world, all the finest hotel sports bars from all over the world. Okay, well, we're starting to wind down as we move into this. Any other like specific tips and tricks that you can think of over the course, or maybe just lessons learned? I definitely learned some lessons, but if you'd like to go try and take a tackle at that, I'm curious to know over the course of the last month if you learned any lessons.
Jet lag is real, whether you are flying east or west, and you are going to be more tired and drinking all the water that you need to do. So I think that it's important to sleep. sleep on the airplane if you can, take the naps, take the nap at the airport or the lounge or in your hotel room before you go and do the thing if you have the time, and make sure you can budget the time in, because otherwise it's almost like you are drunk and showing up at the thing, and that can be terrible for you from a long-term perspective. Take the time. And I think there's an old Irish adage that anything can be solved with a little bit of sleep and a little bit of water, right? And so making sure that you're taking care of yourself, make sure you have the number of some kind of health care, right? Especially, where all your insurance is, but where is the 24-hour emergency care if you get, food poisoning? Where do you go when someone goes missing? And then the final thing, and this is a lady travel trip, is making sure that your tracking's on your phone or whatever device, and always letting somebody know where you are. And it seems silly, and it might seem overprotective, but I don't know how many times I've been at an event, especially in Vegas with these large events, and you can always tell the first timers, they're wearing their name badges as they're walking the streets. And you just want to be like, honey, no. But like, tell people where you are. If you're traveling by yourself, just like shoot it out to your social media network and be like, I am here and I am supposed to be here at this time. And I want to make sure that like somebody from an accountability perspective checks in and makes sure that I'm not dead on the side of the road. And, I hate that in this day and age, we still have to have those conversations, but in an industry where 80% of us are still the females, I think it's a smart travel trip for us to be taking advantage of. How about you?
So one of the things that I learned is that I don't want to travel that much in that concentrated amount of time. Some of us are built for it a little more than others. And so about halfway through, I was like, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to take that many gigs in that short of amount of time. And it's not a money thing or anything like that. It's like, I was a broken human being by the time I got back. So I learned that definitely on the way. The other thing that I tried when we went to Frankfurt, and it worked really well, I felt, and I'm going to keep playing with it, because I read an article talking about one of the ways to get over jet lag is food. And so starting the further the trip, the earlier you start, getting your body clock on the food schedule for where you're going. So starting the day of when I left for Frankfurt, I started already thinking about, okay, it's about 7 hours off. So, I usually skip breakfast and then have a lunch and then have a dinner. So what I want to do is start shifting that off by 7 hours. So when I got on the plane, one of the first things they do is they feed you a big meal. Well, that would be like 2:00 in the morning. Where we were headed. So I just had like a dinner roll, and they were like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I just want a dinner roll and then crash. So get the sleep right away, because it's 2:00 in the morning where you're going. So start getting your body clock set to where you're going as early as possible. So I think international, I think the longer haul away, I think you should even probably start the day before. And I feel like that might have even been in the article. And then for even just when I was heading back and forth, because there was like, I was in Boca, and then I was home, and then I was in Orlando, and then I was home, and then I was in Vegas. And so but even doing those quick bounces where it was just only 1 or 2 hours, just being really careful about, okay, I'm going to set my watch for where I'm going and start getting my body clock on that right away, and start thinking about, well, I wouldn't normally be eating at this time. I wouldn't normally be doing it at this time. And then trying to get back on that schedule. And that seemed to work really well. I felt like when I went to Frankfurt, I felt like I was on pace and back to my own normal self by the next morning, after, we kind of got there early in the morning and then stayed up till 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and then, went to bed and got up early, and then we were out. So that's kind of my jet lag tip that I've been playing with. And so far I've been very happy. Do you use
compression socks? I mean, I feel like you don't.
No.
Yeah, someone was telling me when they were going to New Delhi recently that that's what saved them was the compression socks, and they've never gotten jet lag. And I was like, and I don't ever do it, and so I wondered.
I'd be curious on the science on that.
Yeah.
How compressing your feet can help you get over body clock issues. It
I
seems
don't know.
a little just.
If anyone listening knows, please help us. We're curious now.
Yeah, yeah. So please, chat room. It's been really quiet over there, but again, it is holidays here in U.S. and Canada this week, so we did see a few people stopping in to say hello. But please let us know. #event icons. Why do compression socks work? If so, how? And is the science really sound on that? Please do let us know using that.
The things we talk about.
Yeah, there's a couple more kind of, I'm an equipment guy, right? So I've got a couple more things that we'll just like the lightning round out a little bit as we wrap up. You mentioned dongles. I've got the one dongle to rule them all for Mac. So this is USB-C. And what I like about this one, it's got basically one of everything. So I've got VGA, HDMI, SD card, compact flash, 2 USB ports, a powered USB-C port, so you can actually keep the power running while you've got it in, Ethernet jack, and I think that's it. So, but
you saw it here first, guys. What Brant is getting Lindsay for Christmas? That and the RAV Power Pack.
So it is an Aukey CBC55, and that pretty much covers 90% of all of your dongle needs when it comes to the newer Macs and their USB-C. Fun. By the way, once you go USB-C, you never go back.
Nice.
It's really quite nice to have my phone, both my laptops on USB-C, and I actually bought a USB-C to Lightning adapter, so I can charge my iPad on that as well, so I don't have to bring any more of that. So that's the one dongle to rule them all. In the darkness bind them. Then I've got because I was on the thing a lot, I didn't get a chance to use it. We talked about how being on the road, it felt like whenever we were doing an event icons, I was in a client rehearsal or something like that. So sorry if I missed all of you over the course of the last month. It's nice to be back doing this episode. That's been a lot of fun. So this is the Scuba case. It's kind of hard to show. I'll back it off a little bit. It's about the size of an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. But what I like about it, and some of it's going to fall out, so I have to be careful here, is this is my portable podcasting rig, and it all fits into these nice things. So I've got my microphone, my USB connector, my Ethernet adapter, my tripod, a microphone cable, and a USB cable all in one nice.
I think this is the first time that my equipment rig is better than yours because mine's smaller and lightweight. Mine is a case link and it's a hard case, right? And so everything fits inside of it and it's slightly more compact. That's crazy. And I just tried to one up you.
Thinner.
Oh.
So mine fits in my backpack better, right? So
see, mine fits in my purse, so it works.
When I throw the backpack underneath the seat in front of me, and now there's like an entertainment system box, so that you only get about half of the thing in the seat in front of you. This still fits underneath inside my backpack, so that's why I'm all about thin. So actually, if you look through most of my cases and things like that, they're all really flat and skinny.
I mean, that brings up a good point. Like, we have this running joke with the Event Icons hosts about, like, we always, like, if the guest doesn't show up, we're going to do a What's in My Bag episode, right? But, like, literally, my travel bag is like this, and so it has the flap over, but, like, the best investment I ever found is it's got something that actually zips. I can't do it just because I can't do the Vanna White as well as Brad does.
Backwards,
but
and
you have it come in, and so your laptop fits down inside of there, no matter what kind of laptop size you have, and then it's always safely bound in. And then you have all those other very little things that fit in for your iPads and pieces, and then it will also fit under your seat, including that, whether or not it's flat. So ladies, it's okay, because that will also fit 2 pairs of high heels, a set of business outfits, and your computer.
Nice. And I know Tahira's in Carry On Nation as well. So I mean, she was traveling around the world.
She did what, 42 days? She fit a ball gown.
Yeah.
Like, she did a carry-on, guys, and she did 42, something like that, days on the road, a ball gown, 17 to 30 different countries, and all with one bag. And I want her to send me pictures of how she did it, because I don't know, but it's #LifeGoals.
Yes, absolutely. We would have loved to have had her on this episode to get her travel tips, but she's so casual about it. Most of it would just be like, yeah, you just pack it.
That's what makes Tahira such a rock star.
Yeah, exactly.
We all strive to be like that, truthfully.
All right, I've got one more. What else do you have?
I mean, really, that's it. We've talked about, the self-care tips. We've talked about the must-haves, the lessons learned. We've talked about the hotel things we like. We talked about the fact that coffee is a must-have for all of us and necessary to be found. So, I mean, I think that we're rounding up on it. What's your big finality?
Self-care is a huge part. Yeah, the coffee maker should have been the finale, not the beginning, but that's okay. It's all right. It's all right. So this is kind of an interesting one, and I don't know if I'll be able to do it. I'm going to have to swing the mic up. So basically, I've got this thing. This is about the size of a legal sheet of paper, so I'll zoom out here. So we've got, look, it's flat. It's a flat thing. What could it be? It's thin. It's flat. This thing. So now I'll see if I can do this because now it'll be performance pressure here.
This isn't going to work at all once they move it to audio.
Yes. So what I'm doing is doing some magic with this folding thing that looks like it's come on, do it. No, demo fail.
For the audience watching at home, Brant is trying to
struggling
open up a box and failing miserably. And
Yes.
occasionally you see flashes of red and shocks of pain.
Come on, you can do it, little buddy. It's the problem is, and if you don't do it like for a little while, it's like. Anyway, it's I'll spare you all. So this flat thing actually, it's like an origami thing, and that's why I'm struggling with it. So if you flip it just the right direction, it becomes a stable 1 foot platform. A little bit more than a foot, probably 1.5 foot platform that you can put on a desk and put your laptop on it. So it becomes it's a portable standing desk.
Really?
So that's why I was trying really hard. And it's just one of those things, like you just have to twist it in exactly the right direction in order to make it go. And I'm struggling with that because
it's like the trade show booths that they tell you, the magic ones where you just pop it open and everything springs out. Those are my favorite trade show booths ever.
And it's one of those things that, like, if you just have, once you do it once, you're like, oh, right, that's how it goes. You just have to like open it up and then twist it. And that's what I'm struggling with. So thanks everybody. It was great for you to be here and lovely.
All right. Let's leave on a positive note though. What's your one self-care tip that every road warrior has to have?
The one self-care tip for me personally is that business of trying to make everything as much the same as possible on the road. That's my overarching tip for being a road warrior is all the stuff that you use at home is the stuff that you should use on the road as much as possible, to the point where I don't have an alarm clock at home because I use my phone as an alarm clock on the road. So I'm like, well, I should keep that consistent. So I use my phone as an alarm clock at home.
I like it. All right. And my self-care tip is drink a lot of water. Water is always better.
Yours is much better. It's much more specific.
Well, no, I mean, I think yours is
drink a lot of coffee and bring your own stuff.
See, the thing about it is I cheat, y'all. I drink a lot of coffee, so I tell people to drink a lot of water. But I think that that's probably the best thing for us to end on about all of these things. And I kind of want to go back and listen to your tips to write down all of the tech tools. So thank you for sharing what's in your travel bag.
And thank you. We'll try and dig up as many links as possible and drop them into the show notes as well. Thank you so much for joining me on this little journey, Lindsay.
As always, I enjoy it so much. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. You'll need to sign up at event-icons and make sure that you're downloading and listening and liking us on all your favorite podcasts. If we're not on your favorite podcast, find us and let us know so that we can drop a hot episode on there and get you all tagged up. And we've got lots of shows coming up. We're going to be in Vegas again for IMEX Americas, so come and tell us your favorite travel tips, as well as let us know what episodes you love. And we'll see you next week, guys.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of #Event Icons.
To catch all the bonus content, resources mentioned, and an invite to our Facebook and LinkedIn groups,
head to www.event-icons.com. Also, let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Share your biggest takeaway. Just tag your post with #Event Icons. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on #Event Icons.